Welcome to the Victory Speaks Inspired Conversation series, where iron sharpens iron. That's you and me sharpening each other. I am your host, Nicole Waldron, your voice of victory and your mental fitness coach. And I'm on a mission to create inspiring life conversations with everyday experts, unsung heroes, and thought leaders that will empower us to live a victorious lifestyle. As you join me on this journey through these inspired conversations, I hope you will be inspired to have intentional conversations that will lift you up and enhance your life. No matter the type of conversations we have, good, bad, funny, you name it, it can all be inspiring. Tonight, I invite you to get comfy, get a nice drink or a snack, grab a notepad, as you just never know when a wisdom key can be dropped. Please share this with your friends and get ready to engage with us. It is a great day here in the city of Toronto, and I'm just so stoked. I am so excited. I have been hardly able to contain myself all day with the guests that I have here with you tonight. And so before I get started, you know, it's International Women's Month. The show is being taped in March. And the theme this year in Canada, I really love it. Women inspiring women. And one of the women here tonight, the woman that's here tonight with the man that's here tonight, is a woman that has inspired me for years. It's also Black Mental Health Week in Toronto, and we're focusing on mental health and wellness in our community. So I hope this show really just stirs your pot, just inspires you, but also makes you think to relax, relate, release, and know that your mental health is health. And, you know, I didn't think that this month I would get these guests. I've been having them, holding them in my back pocket, and I'm just praying I would get them, and then bam, there they appeared, because they have just released an amazing documentary. And if you haven't seen it, boo on you. You got to catch up. Tonight, I'm having an inspired conversation with the founders of Hungry Eyes Media. They are the executive producers of the recently released documentary, Black: An Origin Story. This is a groundbreaking exploration of Canada's Black history. My guests, my victory guests tonight are Jen Holness and Sutherland. Now, you got to do me a favor. You got to make sure that you show them. I know we're verbal, we're virtual and stuff, but you can still show some hearts. You can still show some love. You can put some comments. Let us know where you're tuning in from. So let's give a Victory Speaks welcome to Sudz and Jennifer. How you guys doing tonight? Oh, we're going to take you off mute. You're on mute.
There we go. How's that? Sorry about that.
You are back on mute again. What are you touching, Jen? It's something on your computer. There we go. Don't you just love the virtual world?
Oh.
There we go.
Okay, how's that? Did we do it? Did we do it?
It's good. He did it.
Okay. All right. All right. So Nicole was just saying that we're very excited to be here with you tonight. And I am like thrilled. Your send up, your intro was amazing. But we're really glad to be here, and we're good. Last night I won the Crystal Award. So
listen, hold on. I want to tell you congratulations first. I have that in my script. I saw the award on Instagram, and I was like, if Instagram could make noise, I'm like, my God, women in film and television have honored and acknowledged you. The Crystal Award for Creative Excellence. Come on, Jennifer. Give it up, people. Show her some love. This is where I wish, you know, the audience was live and everybody can just applaud you. You're just supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Oh my God. Very good. I don't think I could do that.
It's my favorite word, and I only use it at special times. So as you get to know me, you'll know it's my favorite word. So how do you feel about winning that? Okay, you're back on mute. How do you feel about winning that award last night? Hold on, we're going to wait for that mic to come off mute.
Why we keep slipping into mute?
I don't even know.
Yes, it was. I felt a part of my speech, I talked about the fact that my very first job in the industry was at Twift, WIFT used to be called TWIFT. And
Really?
yes, and it was my first job, and I was a coordinator for a mentorship program. And here's the thing, I didn't even know half of the jobs that I didn't know what they did. I didn't know what they were, but I was fascinated. I was like, oh my God, this is where I want to be. So to think now, so I've wanted to have one of them crystals since then. So to get the award all these years later, it was really special for me. I have to say that there's not a lot of things I think about or covet or anything, but the crystal, and especially for creative excellence, is something that I've actually it's been in my list of things that would make me a little bit happy.
So you see what happens when we dream big and we have the vision, you have that full circle moment. I'm so excited for you. And I'm excited that it's happened in Women's Month. I'm excited that it's happened when in Canada we're saying woman inspiring woman. And I know you're inspiring so many women by what you do. Suds, don't take it personally. It's just a woman.
I'm,
You know,
I'm,
it's
I'm
all about us for a minute. Just for a minute, just for a hot minute.
absolutely.
So here's the thing. I didn't do your bios like, Jen is this, and Sudz is this. I want you to tell me about each other.
Okay. Do you want me to start talk about you, or do you want to start?
You could. Ladies first.
Okay.
Ooh, okay, you can start.
Okay. Well, Sutherland is one of the top creatives in Canada. He is one of the best directors out there. We have a production company together. He writes, he directs, and he executive produces. Now shifted into producing as well. He is the only Black Canadian to win Best First Feature at TIFF. He has a lot of firsts in his name in terms of what he's done, and I do think that he is a director to be celebrated. We've worked together our whole careers. We've made work together our whole careers, and we've made impactful work. I guess what more can I say about Sudz other than the fact that he's an outstanding director, writer, and creative partner?
And you love him. You love him. You love
That's
him
it,
back.
we're married too.
You love
Can
him
you get
back.
that vibe? Can you get that vibe?
It's funny because we were in one of the first places where we had a actual win a prize, the HBO Short Film Award. We presented and we'd said, "Oh, my partner this, my partner that," and then people in there was like, "Are you married or not?" and so yeah, we're married. So people like that, I guess. But what I could say about Jennifer Holness is a fantastic director, writer, and producer. She has like a force of nature. She is a person who really acts as like an inspiration for others because she's the kind of person who's like figures it out and gets it done. But she also aims high because she also dreams big. And so that has sort of propelled our company forwards, and not just sort of thinking small, but thinking and having a global vision, a universal vision. And I think that part of that is just that idea that, okay, well, we're just going to go for it. We're going to try. If we fail, it's not failing. We learn. This stems kind of from her mother, who came here from Jamaica. She was in her early 20s and she had 3 kids, bam, bam, bam. And she thought, I don't want to have 7 kids, And so she just said, I'm going to Canada. She told her husband that she wanted to go. And then he's like, I'm not letting you go. You're here. I'm not going to Canada. This is my country. I'm here in Jamaica. I'm not going. And then she left on the cover of Night. She set the kids up and set the kids up with relatives and then came.
Wow.
That's my mama. We embody that spirit. And I should add, Sud's Jamaican parents who met in London, got married there and came to Canada. So we're both connected to the diaspora. We are both Caribbean people. And, and so we have that vibe going on too.
I just listened to how the two of you introduce each other. What is one thing, I know there's many, one thing you really admire about each other?
I think personally, I admire. This is gonna sound weird, but I admire Jennifer's consistency.
Mm,
And you know what I mean? It's like what you see is what you get. She's straight up. She's honest. She does not pretend, but she is who she is, and she's truth. And she's like, this is we have to be an example to our children. We have three daughters,
right.
but we have to be an example to everybody we come in contact with. And being consistent in how you do things is something that I strive for. I'm not always the most consistent, but something that she just does. It's not easy, but it's just that's something that she does as a way of being consistent and solid. And so that is something that I admire about her, and I try to emulate as I'm trying to live with, rigid honesty and trying to be the person who I my potential of who I am.
Hmm.
Oh, I love that answer. Don't worry, Suds, you're not alone. I'm trying to be consistent too. What would you say about your beloved?
Oh gosh, my beloved here. And he is my beloved. I think the thing I admire the most about Suds is that in the face of all obstacles, in the face of, things that are dramatically wrong or didn't go the way we wanted or what I felt like I needed and, didn't happen or something, he finds a way to keep me encouraged, to
Mm,
keep me from slipping into that, like, oh my God, it's bad, it's not gonna, I think that having someone with that kind of hope and optimism, and I'm a hopeful person, I have to say that,
right.
but that kind of sense that it's going to be okay, that I'm okay, that I haven't failed, or it's because sometimes as a woman,
Yeah.
you take it on, right? And he has always managed to show me that tomorrow is another day and I'll make it through. And that's been really powerful to me, because like I said, I'm a very hopeful person. So when I get into that place,
Hmm.
it's because of a lot has happened. And to have someone who can take me out of that, it's really special.
And you know what? I love your honesty and your transparency. And I hope, anybody listening live and on the replay, you're really hearing what they're saying and what they're not saying. And even when I think of Mental Health Week, I see this synergy between the two of you, and I'm tearing up. They're tear, but they're literally tear ducts happening on the side of my eyes when I just hear the mutual respect and love and care that you have for each other. And I see somebody else cares for you on the line tonight. Dr. Vibe is in the building, y'all.
What's up, Dr.
See?
Vibe?
Sending big congrats to you, Jen, on your award. This is
Thank
big news. This is big news. Now, when we as we look at today we're in March, 3 years ago basically we were really deep in this pandemic, and now we're here, and you released a documentary which we're going to go to in a bit. But how has COVID inspired you? Because it seems to have given you a little extra spunk or something along the way.
you. Well, it's funny. I don't know if people know this, but just before COVID hit, I was at a low in my career. It felt like um, there were commitments to women in Canada, but even as a woman and a woman of color, I did not see a path where I was being supported. And I was literally on the verge of quitting the business because it just felt like too hard. And it wasn't just me. Black folks weren't being valorized here in Canada. And I was seeing moves happening in the States. And it was just like, why? Why is it that there's no more funding for us? Why is it that they're not looking at the international the challenges we have internationally? Why? Why? And also, to be honest, after we did Shoot the Messenger, there was I felt an individual that was really trying to block our progress, because we weren't, I guess, subservient enough. We weren't deferential enough. We didn't, go down on our knees and say how grateful we were.
Mm,
So then the pandemic hit, and George Floyd is murdered, and it's like
mm,
And at that point, a friend called me and said, "Hey, wow, the in the U.S., the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, made a statement. Are you guys going to do anything?" And I was like, "Well, what? It won't even matter. Nothing. It won't matter.
Mm.
Impact here." And then she says, "Well, you figure out what you want to do, but I think you should think about it." And I thought about it. And the next morning, I got on the phone and I called Damon and I called Joan Jenkinson, and we started the Black Screen Office. And
Mm.
got some more Black folks involved, and so I'm a founder and now the chair. That was one of the things.
Mm.
Forming the Black Screen Office, I've had a sense that because of the response and the reaction to it, that we're finally being listened to. What's more, money is being put into our community. There's an understanding of how brutal it has been for us artists. A friend of mine yesterday said to me, "It feels like you're getting an award or you're on a cover of something almost every week." And she said,
Right.
but she said, it's because it's making up for all the times when it should have happened and didn't. So she said, don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel like
Mm.
oh, I'm deserving. It's because it should have happened then and it didn't. And so I guess so my answer is that while brutal, and I did get
Yeah.
COVID in 2020, and I did get COVID in 2022 in January,
Wow.
right? So while brutal on me physically, um, it's been like a new lease in life because we're being seen, Nicole.
Yes.
We're being
Yes.
heard, and
Yes.
and it's a national thing. The struggles of Black people in this country is finally being understood, and that is where my lease comes from. My new lease on life, as they say.
It's the opportunity in the crisis. And, I really believe there was an opportunity in the crisis for creatives, especially for us in our community, and for those that were able to seize the moment. I like, when I grew up in Trinidad, the school I went to, the motto was Carpe Diem, seize the day.
Mhm.
And I could see that you really seized the day. And I know it's a hard journey, and I just hoping that anyone who's listening out here, especially if you're a filmmaker and if you're a creative, listen to what they're saying and get the inspiration and find somebody to that will help you along the way. But Sudz, how did you even become a filmmaker, director, producer? I mean, like, you're everywhere. People don't even know half the places that you're at. You're like this gentle giant behind the scenes of many things.
Um, how did I become a filmmaker? I was always writing as a kid, and then so I was writing, and I then when going to high school, wanted to become an actor. Went try to audition for acting roles, not getting in, thinking because they're all sort of Victorian plays, it's racism, and then Raisin in the Sun comes up, and I'm thinking, I'm going to be in this play because it's Black. And then I didn't get in that one either. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not a very good actor. So I'm just going to write my own play and star in it. And so I go and I give the play to this white guy. He's a director, best director in the school. And then I asked him a few days later, what do you think? And he's like, well, it's pretty good for a Black play. And I'm like, Black play? What are you talking about, Black play? I was like, what are you talking about? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to direct myself. And then so that's how it happened, literally organically like that. Then after that, it went through the Sears Drama Festival, and that early encouragement, because it won prizes and stuff, that early encouragement said, okay, well, you might be able to make a living at this. And, some teachers encouraged and friends and so on. And then Spike Lee was also happening at the time. So then I decided to go to York University for film school, and that's where we met. Jen was in film school, but she was doing a public policy and administration, a political science degree, and so political science / business degree. So we just it was an attraction thing, and just that happened. But then she started I kind of like this film thing,
and I kind of like this Sudz thing and the film thing.
Yeah. And it just started off like that, and then we were at the York University newspaper too, so we used to be at the newspaper, hanging around there too.
I do want to say that what Sudz, because he's very modest. So Sudz
I
was,
know.
he's very modest, and I love that you said he's a gentle giant. Um, uh, he was designated as gifted as a young child in like grade five or six. And so, unlike most of us, he went through the gifted stream. And the play itself was selected for Sears, and that meant it traveled across Ontario, and different schools put it on, mounted it. It was mounted by different places, different schools. And I just think that that must have been such an incredible experience as a young person to have that. Whereas for me, I didn't have that experience. And in fact, I was always creative and writing as a kid, but there was no one that encouraged me. I wasn't in one of those programs where I was seen as artistic or even important. I grew up thinking I was very like whatever, but and the vision and the ideas I had, I thought that they were like flights of fantasy because that's how my family kind of saw it. So, but the fact that Suds had that experience and is so modest about that experience, where some people, especially men, black men, would be like,
Mhm.
"I was this, I was that," from and he never. In fact, I think we were living together 5 or 6 years before he even mentioned that he was gifted or he had been in a gifted program and all these kinds of things. It just doesn't occur to him to,
Listen,
yeah.
Well, I think
your humility will take you places.
I think though, in terms of like that whole thing, like the gifted experience, those type of magnet schools or those kind of gifted programs, like a lot of the kids that I came up with back in my old school, they never finished. They didn't finish high school, and they had, it was tough, right? So it's like when you take a kid out of an environment, like the truth is that every kid should have the had the education that I got because I was
Mhm.
stimulated. I had opportunities to learn. I had opportunities to do things and figure out who I was. And so every kid should get that. So I feel a bit guilty about it, right? I don't feel that it's right that just certain kids get picked out and plucked out. Everybody should have that educational opportunity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's why I'm kind of I have mixed feelings about it. I appreciate the education I got, but I got very mixed feelings about it because I got friends who came up and they had potential. They have lots of potential. There's so much potential out there, and it's a fallacy to think that only this and this kid should get that opportunity. Everybody should have that opportunity, especially us Black kids.
But here's the beautiful thing about it, and I appreciate the fact that you even say that you feel guilty about it. The beautiful thing about it that I am hearing is that you don't just take the information and the experience. You share the information, you share the experience, and you empower others to be part of the journey. So that's where I would even encourage you to release that guilt because that guilt is going to hold you back from what else you have to do. You are such a gift to the world. Just somebody hearing you say that and the humility that comes with it just makes me say la and appreciate you even more. So I'm just going to tell you, I'm the weeping host. I'm not the host that doesn't weep and stuff. I cry. Just letting you know. Just letting you know. Oh, look, I see Miss Emily Mills is on the line. She is learning a lot about this power duo. Congrats to you both. Oh, you're welcome, Em. I'm so glad you're on.
Emily.
Hey, Emily.
Emily is just, yeah, she's my sister friend for life. I'm telling you.
We
And
love Emily.
there's let me tell you, you know what I would love to see? Emily, you're listening with your production ears. I would love to see a documentary on Suds and Jen. All about their life because I there's so much meat here and I have to remember that voice of Emily that always tells me, what do you want to get out of the show? I want everything out of the show. She's like, Nicole, you only have a short space of time, but there's so much in you guys. Like I think of like Hungry Eyes Media, like just give us a little taste of how did you even come about? I mean, the name Hungry Eyes, what made you start this? And I kind of have a feeling that like when Sud said, well, they wouldn't let me in the door, so I create my own thing. So they didn't let me act, so I directed my own thing. It's if you don't get the opportunity, I'm just going to create it myself. That is a bing bing moment. Hungry Eyes. What is Hungry Eyes Media?
Yeah, well, I mean, it started off with the idea of we wanted to create film food for eyes that were hungry for representation, eyes that were hungry to see stories about ourselves, by ourselves, for ourselves. And that was what we sought. Like that was the beginning of it. We had a company, it was called Hungry Eyes Film and Food. And then people thought we were caterers.
I was like, we got to change the name.
Jennifer was like, this has got to stop. We got to change the name. We are going to change the name to Hungry Eyes Film and Television.
Yes,
all right? And I'm like, yeah, okay, it makes sense.
But,
makes sense.
But I want to say that just that embodies us. Like, so Sudz is a bit of the dreamer. Hungry Eyes Film Food. Film as food for hungry eyes. Beautiful. And people be like, it's a catering thing. And so me, I come along with my practicality and say, Hungry Eyes is perfect, but we need to be where we are going to get the opportunities. So Hungry Eyes Film and Television. So we were that for the longest time. And at some point, you know, it became media. Because remember, we started when we were like personal computers were just going. And then next thing we have cell phones, and you have like a power of like a giant computer in a phone. And so media then became, so that was how that was. But, you know, between the way Sudz thinks, and I'm like, here's the thing. I am, and Sudz will tell you, an avid reader. I love writing, and I bring a lot of, people don't realize that I do a lot of the writing in our relationship. And so but I'm not like also seeking, you know, self-aggrandizing or any of those kinds of things. But for me, what I bring to the table is a real practicality. Like this is the steps, a plan. I come with a plan. These are the steps that we need to take to get here. These are the steps we need. And then also, I think that I'm a person who has never really understood the word no, or you shouldn't do this.
That's like fuel to you.
Right?
That's fuel to you.
And I didn't even recognize it. But when people would say no, because most of my life, people dismissed me. And so when people would say no, it was very natural for me to say, what are they talking about? And then figure out another way of getting what I needed to get. So that's always been how I roll. And then like, but just like it's just natural. It wasn't something that I gave any thought to. It was literally like, oh, this person said, like when we did our first short film, Sudz was talking about My Father's Hands. I'm self-taught, so I raised maybe about $30,000 with grant monies, but we needed another 12 or 15. And there was a program for Showcase in Canada had a program where it selected 2 projects a year for short films. And we were preparing for it, and we had to go and pitch. And you know, we'd never had a professional pitch with a broadcaster and for a short film. And then we are prepared, we go, we pitch, and I think there's 3 producers are pitching. And they call us after the pitch and they said, oh, you didn't get it. You didn't get it. And I was like, well, why didn't we get it? And they said, well, we thought your pitch was good, but we don't think the director is ready yet for this endeavor, this 20-odd minutes short film. And so Sudz was like completely like gutted.
I was on the other phone, right? And we lived together. And so I was listening and I was like, this is ridiculous.
No, you were gutted.
I was angry.
You were sad.
But I didn't say anything on the line because I was like, not trying to be unprofessional. So this is a half-hour film, and I've done like 5-minute, 10-minute, almost 50-minute shorts up until that point. And this was the next level. But they saw a black man in front of them, and they never saw no black director in front of them. So they just like dismissed me and Jennifer.
Yes.
And so
But here's the thing. So I said to him, and here's the thing. I said to him, well, that's ridiculous. We're just gonna do it. So we're just gonna do it. So maybe 6 months later, we make the short film. It's called My Father's Hands. It goes on to be the only Canadians to win at the Acapulco Black Film Festival, which is the American Black Film Festival, but the HBO prize for Best Short against 4 other American teams.
Wow.
Okay. We win a $20,000 award, and we get a $17,000 HBO license where it airs on HBO. Okay, we sell it to numerous places that do short films. In fact, we make from that little short film, we made something like $80,000, which
Wow.
which we tucked away and helped us to buy our first house. Right. So I'm telling you. So, but that was it. It was just like,
But ironically, that same woman who said, "Oh, your director's not ready," we hire her later on to do business affairs for us
Wow.
on a series. And it's like, it's just very funny because I'm like, a lot of people think when they meet you, and let's say you're in your 20s or whatever, that you're going to freeze at that level. You're
Yeah.
freeze and you're not going to grow in skills or abilities or intelligence or whatever. So that combined with racism and all this other, the class system and caste and all that kind of stuff goes into somebody's mind and sets limits on people. So we take that as fuel, like even just in terms of like, Jennifer's, she went to university. We both went to university, but along the way, you go to high school and you meet people who set, limits on you because of your skin color, because of their stereotypes about your what your potential is. Because I remember, she's very brilliant, but she's quite modest as well. And so she, the reason why she probably never got to get the program because teachers, non-Black teachers would not see her and see that potential because you got to be recommended by a teacher. And so when you're not like, and so some teachers said to you like, oh, you should try to be a secretary. That's what you aspire to be.
My mother wanted me a lawyer and I didn't know what I wanted to be. And because nobody took writing and I didn't know anybody who was a writer or any of those things. So nobody took that seriously. So when I went to the guidance counselor and I said, oh, I'm thinking about maybe law. And she said, oh, no, you should be a secretary. That's what you should do. And again, I have such respect for people who work in that area. But the fact that was what she felt was where the height and I had good grades. And I remember that when I went to university and I did this policy analysis class and my professor pulled me aside and said, oh, you're such a good writer. Wow. And, and I've had multiple people say this to me in my life. How did you learn this? Or how do you, and I would be like, first of all, I was floored because no one had said to me that I was like a bright person. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, whatever. And it was dismissed. It was never given any attention. And it was the first time I understood that I saw things in a way that like a really brilliant person might understand or think that was valuable. Up until that time, I didn't even know. And so that's what the system does to you. So for Sudz and I, we try to bring people in and explore their brilliance from an early position because we know that the system historically changed a bit now, but the system historically was one that diminished.
Yes and no. The system, I don't know how much it's changed, but there may be more Black faces in it at the superintendent level or what have you. But the education system, I remember going to the guidance counselor when they talk about university and which university you want to go to. And this guy didn't even open up his file on me. Didn't even open up my file. And he's telling me, yeah, I think, you know what, you look like you could be a carpenter, and this is like just out of Malcolm X. I'm like, what are you talking? I'm like, okay, sure. I never expressed any interest in carpentry, but I'm like, where did you get this from? And I said, could you open up my report cards? Because I want to go to York University, like York.
Wow.
Okay, and he opens up a report. He's like, oh, and he knows I was gifted or whatever. He's like, oh, sorry. I'm like, but you know what I'm saying? He gave me the treatment because he just saw my skin color that I'd walk in the door, and that's what he thought who I was. And all of our kids are going through that every day.
They're going through it so much. Like I have friends that are teachers and principals and stuff, and when you hear what you went through, and you hear that they're still going through this, and it's just mind blowing, and you wonder what it's going to take to wake them up, and like you guys are just so phenomenal because I feel like we need like 5 parts to this show. And I'm sure anybody who interviews you feels that way. And I love Sarah. Sarah picked up on it right away. Refusal as fuel to keep trying. And listen, you got some love here on the line tonight. Stacey Ann says, my favorite power couple. Come on now. Come on now. Oh, yes, this is what I'm saying. And I'm just so welcoming everybody who's tuning in live and on the replay. I have been blessed and honored to have the great Ben Holness and Sutherland here with me tonight. And one of the main reason they kind of came on was to talk about their new documentary. But I gotta let you get a little taste of them because not everybody knows about you. They don't know the great power couple that many of us know and have been looking at over the bench and say, oh, look, Sudz, and there was Sudz and Jen, and we've been looking at you from a distance. And so before we get into Black and origin story, do you want me to show them the clip now or as we get into it? I'm going to let you make the choice tonight.
Sudz?
Well, why don't you show it now? And then,
then they can see what it's about. Then they know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to show you a little clip and then we're going to come right back.
Black people in Canada are the northernmost expression on the planet of anything you want to call African. We are the Nordic African people.
What we have to understand is Nova Scotia history of Black presence is very complicated. I think it's the most complex in the nation. We're dealing with waves of migration.
After meeting the Queen in Buckingham Palace, she asked me about it. She said, tell me about this Book of Negroes. And I love the fact that this kid from Don Mills could tell the Queen something about British history that she didn't know.
They were not settlers, they were settled, given no other place then to come to Nova Scotia.
This story is about the Black Loyalists, ex-slaves turned soldiers who fought alongside the British in the American Revolution. They came to Nova Scotia with hope in their hearts and freedom in their hands. Next came the Fighting Maroons of Jamaica, who were deported to Halifax in 1796 by the British. Undefeated warriors who lived free for over a century. They embodied a powerful spirit that could not be subdued. Then came the Black refugees who took up arms in defense of Canada in the War of 1812. Facing great hardship, they became part of an enduring community like no other in this country. Descendants of these three epic migrations represent Canada's largest Black population today. The Black Loyalists, Jamaican Maroons, and the Black refugees. Together, they constitute an incredible story that is Nova Scotia.
My name is Isaac Sini. I'm the director of the Transition Year Program at Dalhousie University. I'm also a specialist on the history of Cuba, African diaspora, and Black Canadian history. One of the very interesting myths about the American War of Independence is that the majority of people of African descent supported the rebels who were fighting to throw off the yoke of British domination. But many more Africans volunteered to fight with the British because the British, in a sense, promised them freedom, issued 2 proclamations, and said any African who joined them would be granted their freedom.
When the revolution broke out, the population of the American colonies was about 2.5 million people. Included in that 2.5 million were 500,000 enslaved Africans and African Americans. And it occurred to some of the British dignitaries that if they could get the enslaved population on their side, then they could win the war. But the estimate at the time was 100,000 enslaved people ran away to the British. My name is James Walker. I am now an emeritus professor and I taught race relations and human rights at the University of Waterloo. The person claiming freedom had to run away, had to free themselves, and then they went and offered their services to the British. And it was a slave rebellion. They were saying, I want to participate in this slave rebellion. And so to do that, they had to join the Loyalists.
They referred to as black loyalists. Some of these who joined the British side to fight. Different black battalions were formed. Some of them actually carried emblems that said liberty for slaves, which indicated that not only were they free from slavery, but they were willing to engage in a collective blow for their other brethren who were enslaved as well. They were promised freedom, they were promised land, they were promised provisions if they fought. When they came to Nova Scotia, many of them, and some people have used the term, thought they were coming to the promised land because they had these certificates of freedom that were granted to them that established the fact that they, even though they were Africans, were legally free.
When black people in New York City were preparing to leave, to evacuate after having served the British on the losing side of the American War, they had to have their names entered into a British military ledger called the Book of Negroes before they're allowed to set sail and come over the 9-day trip by boat from New York City to Nova Scotia. My name is Lawrence Hill, and I'm a writer. The Book of Negroes is a ledger, 150 pages, about 9 columns of information for each person. About 3,000 names are entered into it. And it's the first time in the history of North America that we have thousands of black people publicly, formally documented by a major body. It's vile in its racist language, but it's also rich and colorful in the way it describes people, what they look like. Often a term such as lusty wench, appears to describe a young black woman, or broken down, not much good, might be another term that's used to describe, say, a man who's blind, who's coming to Nova Scotia.
So the black loyalists arrive as free men and women into a society that's already prepared to treat people of African descent as simply people who would provide labor and will be bereft of political rights.
My name is Charmaine Nelson, and I'm a Tier 1 Canada Research Chair and the Director of the Institute for the Study of Canadian Slavery at NASCAD University. Can we for
There you go.
I gave you guys a really good taste of this because I sat there on the premiere. I watched it on the 26th of February on the History Channel. Then I went back on Global on March the 4th and I watched it again because, it's so rich. You can miss so much. It is, look, Sarah, I thank you for this description. It is epic cinematography, exquisite storytelling. Watching this exceptional work makes me so proud to be Black. Listen here, if you guys have not seen it, I'm telling you, Jen and Sudz, I watch it, I have tears, I have so many emotions. I have set my beautiful phone alarm because you can do that on the iPhone. I have set it to make sure that I am right there. Do not book me for the next 3 weeks for the rest of this series because it is so important that I watch this, not just for myself, but tell other people about it. Like, what made you do this series? And for people live and on the replay, this is Jen and Sudz. Stay tuned. Go back to the beginning if you want to know who they are. But we're talking about Black, an origin story, and this documentary they've just done. What made you do this series?
Oh, well, I mean, it's a part of the story. I am an immigrant, and but I did most of my raising up here in Canada. And I think it was very rare for me not to feel like I was the other, that I didn't belong. And a part of that feeling of not belonging was going through a school system that never showed that Black people contributed in a significant way to this country, to the development of this country. And so my whole life, I had one idea about what Canada was. And then in our 20s, when we made our very first professional film, Speakers for the Dead, we discovered that African Canadians were some of the first non-Indigenous settlers in Ontario, in southwestern Ontario in particular. And we made a film called Speakers for the Dead. And that, for me, was such an important film, but it was kind of ignored. And so, again, somebody called it the George Floyd dividend. So this Black man is murdered, and Canada suddenly understands that there has been systemic and structural racism that have denied Black people opportunities. The film and television industry recognizes this as well. And someone puts in a call to us and said, "We've never worked with you. We admire your work. Is there something you would like to do?" And Sudz and I immediately, without skipping a beat, said, "We would like to tell this story of Black Canadians, this story that of this history, because we understand the power of history and the power of story, and how by young people, young Black people, knowing that Canada was partly built on the backs of Black people, that this in our minds will give them a sense of space and place that has not existed and did not exist with our own growing up." So that is how BLK and Origin Story came about from my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, very much so. Is like we try to get some of these stories out there after we learned about them. So we get in the early 2000s, get Speakers for the Dead out in the world, and then universities start using it. Like professors like Charmaine Nelson start using it. But we that's sort of a secret within the academic community. But we always want to tell these stories. And so then we, when we have this opportunity, we're like, okay, well, now we can tell these stories that we were storing up for a long time. And the idea that, okay, well, there were large communities of African indigenous people. They're like, when we would run away, when we would get out of America and slavery, we'd come up, and indigenous folks would take us in. So of course, they should take this course. And so there's large, families, and so we never really heard that story before. Nova Scotia with the Mi'kmaq and Africans, they got together. There's lots of Black indigenous folks. And so we wanted to talk about that because nobody talks about that. And so these are some of the stories that we want to get out into the world, because again, this is Canadian history. But this is because a lot of students think Canadian history is really boring. Yeah, it is boring because they've sanitized it and took out all the good bits. And so we're trying to bring the good bits in. That's really what BLK and Origin Story is.
It's so rich. How long did it take you guys to make this?
Here's the thing. It took us, this is incredibly fast. I have not slept in the last 2 or 3 months because we were commissioned in September of 2020, but we got funding, our first funding came in November. So between November and March, we wrote the treatments and put in production applications between March and May, got into prep in June, start shooting in July, film from July till basically December, and while editing, and literally, to deliver episode 1, I don't even know what to tell you. It was, and what people don't realize is that it's 4 1-hour documentaries, and people generally take a year at least to make a 1-hour documentary. And as you pointed out, Sarah pointed out, Sudz and I wanted to make something really beautiful, something really impactful. And so we wanted to work with great cinematographers. So we worked with Ricardo Diaz and Ashley Iris Gill. And the thing is that a Black man and a Black woman, right? And they were so committed with us to deliver something really beautiful. What people don't know, this episode that you saw, it takes place between, let's say, the 1760s to the 1814s, 1816. You know what didn't exist? Not photography didn't exist.
Right.
So almost everything we did in that episode, I had to create. So the stuff on the ship, all of those things had to be creative. And, even there's there's an image of Thomas Peters, who was one of the founders of Sierra Leone. There's one statue that exists of him in Sierra Leone, and the statue is not well made. So we made art to the Maroons ambushing the British. There's not a good image of that. So we had someone paint that. We had to create almost everything from scratch. Bar one or two things like the Maroons. You talk about the Maroons and the insignia. First of all, one of my researchers randomly found out this information, dug it up. There's nothing that existed, and had a painting made. So that was some of the things, because we were trying to make it visual, even though there wasn't a lot of material that existed. I think mine has the least amount of material that exists, because my period is at a time when photography didn't exist. Photography came in the 1840s, right?
But also, like as Charmaine Nelson will point out, Dr. Charmaine Nelson, she'll point out, Black people were never usually the subjects of paintings.
Yes.
So you had a lot of money for a painting, for an old painting. So, and then you would pay that person a lot of money, and if you didn't like what they turned you out as, you wouldn't pay them. So that's why, in terms of all these paintings, all these rich people look as good as they do. But nobody was taking our portraits, right? Nobody was interested.
Yeah.
And so they wouldn't make any money from somebody who was poor or enslaved. So that is why we're so rarely have such rare portraits. And when you see like something like a slavery ad, like a runaway slave ad, one of the things that we wanted to do was project that onto Black bodies. We wanted to make that clear that this was actually a portrait of this person, but a portrait in text. Dr. Charmaine Nelson is a pioneer of this, looking at these slavery ads as portraiture, in a way, unwilling portraiture, because nobody who was a subject of a runaway slave ad wanted to be found, But so but we wanted to do things visually that you hadn't seen before, because I've always seen a slave ad just printed on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when we projected them onto Black bodies, onto Black faces, it took on a different sort of aesthetic meaning for us.
Can I give you another project? The making of Black, an origin story. That really needs to be done, because just the intricacies of what you're talking about. I didn't see it. I don't know why. I watched the thing twice, and then I saw where the rainbow was placed. I was like, that rainbow, that means hope. That was a deliberate rainbow. I'm like, girl, Sudz, you just placed that rainbow. That was a message there, because the rainbow signifies hope.
Yep.
Sarah's doing like such an essential story that needs to be told. My late grandmother is a Maroon. They are warriors. It is so important to highlight the contribution and sacrifice of Black, Indigenous, and Loyalists to the liberation and development of Canada. Listen, this thing is so rich. And then I looked at all the experts in episode 1 and 2. Like, if you could even just narrow down for us, like, how did you even begin to, in that short space of time, pick all those people and then get them to film them? Like, what was the magic? What was the formula?
Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, some of the people we're friends with, and that's one thing about like in having, just having really cool, amazing, intelligent, beautiful, brilliant friends. Like, to people that we feel very, very lucky. We feel very lucky to count them amongst our friends. So, but when we meet, like we met Larry Hill like years ago at an Emancipation Day picnic.
When our kids were really little.
Our kids were really little, and Larry, this is before he had Book of Negroes. And so we loved his books, Any Known Blood and his early books. And we just loved his books, and we just were fans. And it was before he hit the stratosphere with it, Book of Negroes. So we've had a long-standing relationship with a lot of these folks. And so when it came time to think, okay, well, who makes their living in history as a Black person in this country? We thought, okay, well, let's bring Larry Hill in this. He's been great. George L.A. Clark, he's been great. Charmaine Nelson, she's been great. And we didn't know S.E. Adasian, but we loved her books.
I loved her books. Yeah.
So let's reach out to her, And so that's how it kind of organically came about.
Yeah. And I mean, thankfully, because of the work we have done,
Mm-hmm.
for the people that we didn't know, they really responded really positively very quickly. We also had a secret sauce. We worked with Kalela Brooks, and Kalela Brooks, I hired Kalela Brooks to be my EA, executive assistant, and she was just excited to work at him. She had admired us, and while she was working with us, I noticed that she had an incredible way of dealing with people that was just really wonderful. And so she also had another job that she was doing.
She
and
wasn't a good EA. She was not
well,
a good
no,
executive.
no, what was that exactly? Is that
She
she
just
had,
worked
she had
it.
to leave
Straight
at
up.
2,
Straight up.
and my
She
work
was better at something else.
yes,
She was
yes.
better at something else.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, absolutely.
but to be fair though, she was working from like 10 to 2, and
Right.
my work goes on till 9 o'clock at night. So, but she was going home and doing stuff after her second job. And I say, anybody who works that hard and who is just so committed. So I was I needed like an associate producer. And I thought, who are we gonna hire as associate producer? And obviously gonna be a Black person. And I said to Sudz, we should hire Kalela. I mean, I think she's gonna work really hard. There's a lot of stuff she has to learn, but I think she's gonna work really hard. And I offered her that position. Shockingly, like I don't know, like a month later, we're just talking about. She goes, "Oh, I'm from Nova Scotia." We're like, "What?" and
then
Bam, a door opens.
Part of the Colley family.
She's part of the Colley family.
Like I was like, what? Okay, but what I loved about that story, because it's all true though, is that I saw her value before I even realized her larger value. So
Right.
needless to say, she helped me so much. For example, Senator Wanda Bernard is somehow related to her. Can't even remember the connection. And so she's
everybody
like,
in Nova Scotia
is
Black
literally
is related
to
Everybody knows.
each
Yeah.
other.
Walk
So,
around Nova Scotia, Black. Yeah.
Wayne Hamilton, and she's like, oh, I know this person. I said, I
She's
found
like Uncle Wayne.
Yeah,
And Wanda.
I saw this museum that I thought was incredibly beautiful. This was the Black Loyalists Museum, and I said,
Beautiful.
"Yeah, I filmed there." She goes, "Oh, I know the person who works there." So I mean, it was just like there's no way we could have done Halifax and Nova Scotia without Kalela. But the beauty of the story is that we hired Kalela because of what we saw in her and her value. I think that's the thing about Black folks. People dismiss us, especially when we don't have the perfect kind of experience.
Education and
Right? You know what I mean? Exactly.
You want some real talk, Nicole?
Real talk, real conversation. Come on now.
Real talk? Okay, I'll give you some real talk. You said you want to have a behind the scenes about BLK. I'll just tell you, as a Black entrepreneur, I'm sure you come into this. People might not be used to you as a Black woman telling them what to do, having standards, having saying this is what I'd like to do, and I'd like to see it happen, soon. Here, let's go. But some people are not used to that. We call that with our children. We say that they're traditional thinkers. And we say that you must understand, up until this point, this person may be 30, 40, 50 years old. They have been taught by the whole society that white is up here, Black is down here. And as a Black female, nah, you ain't supposed to be talking to me like that.
You all the way at the bottom.
You're all the way at the bottom. So they're not ready for this. And so we try to interview people and make sure that they understand that, Jennifer's boss and understand that. And just that's how it should work, right? But the thing is that people may say they're ready for it, but when it comes time to put pedal to the metal they're not ready for it. And so also now we're talking about a young Black woman, Ashley Iris Gill. So we say, you know what? She hasn't had all this experience, but she has the talent. And after these 42 days of shooting, she's going to be up here. We saw that potential in her, but there were certain people on the crew who might be a little bit older, a little bit whiter, saying, you know what? I should have her job. And, she shouldn't have that job just because she's Black or just because
We had someone say to another staff member, I don't think it's right that someone should be hired because they're Black. And they were talking about Ashley, who is incredible. Some of that beautiful photography you saw was her work with Ricardo Diaz. And And it was like, because they wanted that job, second camera, to go to, a partner or a brother,
Yeah.
they actually thought they could get us to do that hiring by not, for example, following up on her contract, by delaying so that she might even have another job. I mean, there were some, once there were some machinations happening that, let me tell you,
Yeah.
but we're used to it. And so when these things were happening, because we just then reached out to the person directly, Ricardo, being a friend and just a fantastic cinematographer, filmmaker, we called him up. Ricardo, why is this not happening? He goes, what? No, my crew never got called. My team never got called. The sound guy who you guys want to work with, he hasn't gotten the call.
So once we found all this stuff out, all these machinations going on and on and on, you know what I'm saying? Like, we found all this stuff out, but this is like, we're busy trying to get all this, lining up people and doing all
trying
this
to
stuff.
finance the show while writing and
trying to put all this stuff together. And these things are big, complex machines to put together. So it takes a lot to do. And so that we leave stuff to other people. And once we found that out, we're like, no. So stop that. But along the way, there was some difficulties because, again, like, I've had crews mutiny on me in the past because they're not ready to have a Black person.
Wow.
A lot of times I'm the youngest person in my early part of my career. I was the youngest person on the set, and I was also the director. So that was something very upsetting to like 50-year-old, 60-year-old white guys, because they were like used to calling the shots. And so I've had crews mutiny on me. So I'm like, and then I have to take over the camera and take over the set. Like, it's not been easy. It's not been easy. This has been, like Jennifer said, like, we've had some tough times to get here. So when, even still on this project, we were surprised because we thought we'd passed all that, but no, it's not. It still happens. So the thing, though, is that for example, with Ashley, I have to tell you, like, when you saw somebody who was so talented and tough, right? Because she got this from these other guys too on the crew. So she put her head down. And then this woman is also an excellent drone pilot. She's like, it's insane. This girl is talented.
She came to play, and she delivered more than we expected. And that's the thing, when you give our people a chance and then give them the tools for success, they will over deliver. And that's and that's something we know. And so, sometimes it's harder on you, by the way, because there's certain things that you don't know, you don't have those years, because even Ricardo, who's really a wonderful DOP, he's not really had the industry big production opportunities.
Right. Yeah.
So, so these are the things, right? And you're having to fight. And then for me as a Black woman, our line producer said to me, and he's a really lovely guy. He said, 6 months ago, I've never heard your name. I heard Sudz. So, but I never heard your name. And, I was like, I don't care, whatever. But here's the thing. What that means and what that has meant is that when I say I want this, whatever, half the time people are just not dismissing, but kind of like expecting or thinking, I don't know what they're thinking. Okay, I know what they're thinking.
Call it out.
They don't believe that I know what I want and what I'm doing. But if you talk to Ricardo, who was our lead DOP, he will tell you, I would go into a space and he'd be like, da da da, and what about that? And I'm like, no, let's do this and this. I mean, there are times when I have a vision. Like when we were doing this, I was like, let's do these signs for the thing. I was like, I need a drone person. I need to get this water thing. Everything you see was something that I said I needed.
Because you're born for this.
You know what I mean?
Born for this, Jen. You're born for this.
I'm not trying to toot my horn. I'm just merely saying, though, people then just assume. And then even in the post-production, people have actually ascribed my episode to Sudz, like taking my name off things. Just bizarre. Would send him emails and not me on my own episode. I mean, listen, but fortunately,
there's a lot of sexism out there.
You see, you're pointing out some key lessons here. Who can you trust? Who do you trust? And your team, your inner core, has to be your inner core, because what I'm picking up here, could you imagine if you and Sudz didn't have the relationship that you do?
Exactly. Oh, it would be. Let me tell
a hot mess that we can't even wipe up on a hot sunny day. It would be a hot mess.
Completely.
Yeah. And I think that ultimately, Nicola, is like when us as Black people are in the driver's seat. And again, like we have to make decisions of bringing other Black folks in, because anyhow you're the only person there, that's when they destroy you. Because like we can't play that game. We have to bring people in who you trust, people in who you're giving a chance to so that they maybe they've been denied or what have you, but like they're having a chance, they getting a shot. And now, because now we all boats lift as we rise, right? Yeah. That's the whole point.
And you know what? And I'll say to my Black sisters and brothers out there, we have come from an enslaved people. We are traumatized. We have some stuff, but there is enough room for all of us.
All of us. Yeah.
Like if you look at Dr. Vibe and there's another podcaster friend of mine, Danny Stone and Sarah, we all celebrate each other. Okay, did you get this one? What do you need? It's like everybody has their own frequency.
Yeah.
Like some of our audiences may cross over, and that's okay. But some people, they may not know, and it's okay. It's okay to lift each other up. We do more together when we rise together. I'm just so in love with you, two of you. I just want to curl up next to you and just talk for hours. Like just talk, because this is real talk, real conversation, and this is what happens here in the show. We lose track of time. So anytime we say, Nicole, it's time to go, you just send me a little text. But because I when I was watching it, one of the words I heard was freedom. Freedom came out a lot, right? What is freedom? And listening now to the context of the story, context of your filmmaking, curating this, what does freedom really look like for you now, especially now that you've come through doing these documentaries? Because I'm sure you're different people now than you were when you started this.
Yeah, for sure. It's a brilliant question. Do you want to go first?
See, that's a trap. She always puts me in front. You want to go
first? I know. It's not true. She from you. Yeah.
As the Jamaicans say, she played fool to catch wise.
Okay. See, this is his
first time I heard it, I was like,
this is him now doing that thing where I don't know if you notice, he makes me go first all the time. And then whenever I say for him to go first, he then turn around and say, oh, she's doing this. But fine, I have no problem. For me, freedom is being able to go where you want, to be where you want, and to do what you want unmolested. That there's not some roadblock set up where you can't achieve yourself. It's not just like it's not just a physical thing. It's the inability to be the person that you are inside, because everything around you has created systems where you are in a box where you're diminished. You know what I mean? So it's not just like I physically am able to go to the store, but if you go to the store and there's 3-4 things along the way that's keeping you from being who you are because you're just so downtrodden by the system, that is not freedom. When I think about the early Blacks, they came here seeking freedom. And they were put in the worst places, like, the places that was a hard road, rocks, this kind of a thing. They weren't given the ability to survive in the way that white settlers were given opportunities to survive. So in many cases, they had to compromise everything that they had just to survive. Freedom is beyond just surviving. Freedom is the ability to thrive.
Woo!
Yeah, that's
She
good.
dropped the mic on that, Sudz. I don't know what you're
That's
going to say.
really, I was like, wow. I think it's a good question. I think you answered it very well. But I think that like one of the things, because we asked all of our people, all of our contributors, what freedom meant to them.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's such an incredible question, because we who were denied freedom from birth, because as far as if we were talking 200 years ago or whatnot, it's like your children, your children, your children's children would be slaves. As far as you understood it, they would be slaves forever.
Right.
And so that was like, in looking at, celebration of Women's History Month, I'm reading a feminist history about white women who owned slaves in the South, because they were told, like, I mean, we understand white women as abolitionists and all that kind of stuff. The truth, there were some abolitionists, absolutely, but 40% of the slave owners in the South around that were women. And we have to really now talk about that, because it says that, you know what, actually women were not denied agency. Actually, women were active participants in this. So we now have to re-explore and talk about all these things. But getting back to your question about freedom, we were like thinking, okay, like, what is freedom? Because we asked Larry Hill, we asked every single person, what does freedom mean to you? And it's like, people had great answers, like, well, freedom to love who I want. Freedom to make a mistake when I'm a teenager and not have to pay for it with my life. Freedom, freedom to walk down the street and not be afraid of the police. Freedom to be a young Black boy in school and to make a mistake and not have to be suspended or call the police or be taken away in handcuffs. Like, these are the things that freedom means. I can move through the society, make a mistake, and grow up, and and have all the benefits of the society, but and not be penalized by the state for just existing. So all of these things, I mean, it's complex in terms of freedom and what it means. But I think that as Black people, we have to demand true freedom, from the institutions of the state that used to oppress us. Because again, the police were actually come out of slave patrols. That's their history. So they're there to protect rich people's property. We are the property. We were the property.
And when we stopped being the property, we then became the target. And never, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, still are the target.
Yeah.
So,
and we still are the target. We still are the listen. So we're making a documentary, right?
Oh my
God. I have this secret dream of being a filmmaker. I'm just letting you know. I have documentaries. I have documentaries, but this freedom one, even if we do a short reel, we'll call, we can do a short Instagram reel, Facebook reel, YouTube reel. What is freedom? But I'll need cinematography expertise to make it really pump. Now I'm really enjoying this conversation. And before I get off track, and there's just a few more questions before we wind down. Where can people watch Black and Origin Story?
Well, you can watch it every Friday night on Global at 9 p.m. Friday night at Global, 9 p.m. And you will see, this week we're going to see Montreal on Friday night, but Saturday nights you'll catch the new one, and we drop a new one on Saturday nights at 9.
Vancouver,
and that's Vancouver. We're going to see the history of Victoria, Vancouver, and a place called Holness Alley, where the Black people used to hang back in Vancouver.
I'm looking forward to that one, because
I love this episode.
Looking forward to this one.
Sudz and I co-directed that one, and I love the episode because I think it was a story I knew the least about, and even the parts of the story that some people know about, the other part, I think I've not met anybody who knows anything about it. So I think it's a really, really important story. Friday night, I think Maya Anik Bedward did the Montreal episode. She's a young filmmaker. I wanted to bring a young person on the project, and she's a woman, and that's really important to me too. She's very talented, so she was on her way anyhow, but we brought her in, and she wrote and directed it, and she did a phenomenal job. And that's on Global, as Sudz said. History Saturday night, and also like Stack, like the history, all the history affiliates. It's on there. And I should say what they do on Saturdays, though, they play the previous week on the at 8 o'clock, and at 9 o'clock on Saturday they play the new one. So you'll be able to catch the Vancouver episode on Saturday on history. But guess what? The next Friday it's going to be on Global. So for those who don't have cable and so forth and whatnot, Global every Friday night. For the next 3 weeks, you're going to be able to catch BLK and Origin Story.
Oh, you're mute.
You're
muted.
All this excitement and I'm muted. All that excitement. I'm just saying to people, go on demand and watch it, because you can always go on demand and watch it. And Heather was saying freedom is being able to make a mistake with, oh, yeah, she's repeat. Listen, I'm loving this, and people go watch it. Now, you did all of this, and from the little that I saw, I felt some of the trauma. So if you could just, and we're in Mental Health Week. I got my mental health to pin on here. How do you take care of your mental health as a filmmaker dealing with the racist individuals and the system? But what do the two of you do to just stay grounded and maintain your mental health so well?
I think you have to like have friends that you can talk to, and I think that in the case of like, you know, what was going on the crew and stuff, is being able to take Ricardo and Ashley and say, hey, this is what's going on, and you know, I want to talk to you. How do you feel? And ask them. Just do that check-in every week, and there's nobody else around, you know, and whatever is going on, I think that we have to be there to support each other.
Yeah.
And then with Jen and myself, I mean, it's a daily thing. We talk to each other throughout the day, constantly, every day. And it's like, you know, what's going on, and hopefully, you know, if something's going on in her backyard or something going on in my backyard, we do a check-in throughout the day, but also at the end of the night, just checking in and saying, hey, what's going on? And also with our kids too, because our kids have struggles. They're all depressed because of COVID. And so we try to buoy up their spirits and tell them that this is their conflict, this is their war, this is their thing that they got to deal with. But try to be there for them too, because we have to understand that they're going through something that's unprecedented for them. And but in mental health, I'm so glad you're big proponent of mental health, because as Black people, we have to really take care of that, because like and say it's okay, you know, if you're going through something right now, because we're here for you, and it's really, really important to check in with everybody and just say, hey, how you feeling, or just go for a walk, or whatever you need, because it's like we have to support each other, because this world is very, very cruel, and this society is very cold and indifferent to our suffering. And obviously, you notice that because there's a whatever gentleman was saying, George Floyd dividend, because certain Black people get some opportunities now. A lot of white people getting a nose out of joint. So you get that backlash or the blacklash too. And so we got to be there for that too, because that's going to happen if it's not happening already. So we have to be here for each other.
How do you deal with the backlash, the blacklash? Go ahead, Miss Jen. How are you taking care of your mental health and wellness?
So I think that for the longest time, I didn't. For the longest time, I remember even when we were dating, and for many years, I would sit in a car and he would be driving and I would be like this. And I would have to, or rarely, when I rarely went to get my nails done, they'd be like, you know, release. And I was on high alert at all times. And how I got through crises was work. Work kept me grounded, and like it was a place where I felt I could fight all the other stuff by just doing. Then I started to understand that I was not dealing with mental health issues, whatever they were, and the comfort of work or reading was my other way of dealing with mental health. I love books, I love stories. And so when I was the most depressed and the most sad, I would find a
It's really
novel,
good.
and then
Yeah.
I would lose myself into someone else's story, and then the world didn't seem so bad. Then Oprah Winfrey and her Super
Mm,
Soul Sunday actually saved me. I remember there was a period where, because it's tough. You're always fighting. And I'm trying to raise
right.
my three daughters, and I feel it. And sometimes Sudz actually travels to work, and I'm on my own. And it just feels like so, and then you're just also grumpy even,
Right.
which is the times where I don't like myself, and so Super Soul Sunday and finding the voices of Black women in
Oh,
particular.
I love Super Soul Sunday.
Listen, it has, because it reminds me of who I am,
Hmm.
why, my internal life is valuable. So we have a
Yes.
dog, and so mental health for me is taking a walk with the dog, maybe listening to a Super Soul Sunday, or just I literally sing to myself while I walk. I'm like I'm observing the world that's around me. And all of that gives me such grace, such sense of place and feeling. And last but not least, I won't lie, communicating to Sudz some of what is happening, and retreating from
Hmm.
the demands,
Yes.
retreating from things, and just like having the ability to do that has been some of the things that have kept me like pretty, because I'm pretty solid.
Yeah.
But as I've noticed though, that it's actually becoming harder and harder. There's just so much coming at you. And I know it's really, really difficult. And so, what I try to do is I try to be that support to others in need too.
Yes.
Like just sending a text saying I love you. Just sending a text and saying
Yes.
you're amazing. Just
Yes.
being cognizant that you have to fill that role. Finding a little something that you think someone will like and sending it to
Somebody
them.
comes to mind. Don't
Right?
delay. Don't delay when that
Yeah,
person
yeah,
comes to mind. It
yeah.
is so important. And I like your transparency and your vulnerability, because not many people, want to speak about it. And Dr. Vibe, you're so right. Even strong people struggle, and we are all strong people. And it's our humanity. We are human beings, and we're only meant to do so much. And no is a complete sentence. The same way that you will not. Don't tell me no when you want a project. But sometimes you have to say no for self-preservation. No is my self-preservation. Oh, we got a question from the audience. Hold on, we can't leave without this.
Okay.
Did the broadcaster give a lot of notes, or did they let Jen and Sudz run with it?
Yeah, I mean, like they have their notes and their questions and stuff, but for the most part, they let us run.
They let us run with it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of respect that was given. We worked with Kathleen Meek, and also though from Rachel Nelson on high, she put the word to the team, to let us be able to tell the stories. So I know there were some things that were there wasn't a lot of notes. I have to say there weren't a lot of notes, but when the notes came, it was always coached in, we would like this, but what do you guys think? And so there were some of them that we really, try to meet because they were actually intelligent based on some of the things that they understood. And the other ones we were like, no, this doesn't work for us. And they didn't even fidget or, I felt like we were in a team trying to make the best show. And
Right.
so for that part of it, it was really, it was atypical and lovely.
It was good because again, like this is Canadian history, and this is history that none of us know, right?
Yep.
So when we were discovering this stuff, they're like, "What? Really? What?" And like, yeah, it was like, and so, but that was the thing of like bringing this history to the country and to the rest of the world, because that was our burden, right? Our burden is to represent our ancestors and honor our ancestors in a way that they've never been honored before. And that's what, everybody's talking about the first episode. That's what I think Jen did such a great job with in terms of respecting and honoring our ancestors and showing them like, that pit house that we, that was like, nobody told us about the pit house. We were just walking around. Jen was just walking around, wandering around the grounds of the museum. And she's like, what is the structure? And then we, found out about it. And oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is how we used to live. But the thing is that indigenous folks taught us how to build those structures.
Come on now. That pit house? Oof.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's advanced technology of the time, because like what they were going to just freeze and die.
And some of them died.
If not,
I mean, you have to understand, people died. People froze to death. People, I mean, it was.
And it was cold, and they didn't have they didn't have a lot of the things that we had. Like, I watched that. Listen, people, we're going to try not to give away too much, but you need to really watch this. My question for you is, I really commend the History Channel, and I really commend Global for putting this on. But after Global, after, History Channel, what are you going to do with this? How are we going to get to see it? What's the plan? I have a plan, but I don't know what your plan is. But I have a plan for this.
We just need some money for it. We have a plan.
Whoever's listening out there in Victory Land, how much money do we need?
Yeah, so this is the thing.
How much money we need?
Oh gosh, I would say
how much millions do we need?
I would say about 100. Yeah, I'll tell you why. Two things. We create the lessons and so forth, but we need to hire people. This is what happened. On Subjects of Desire, the first time, part of the reason why people know about Subjects of Desire is I hired an impact producer. And that impact producer, Jackie Garrow, who has been really fantastic, so we pay her, and she pays a digital media person, like to do social media. You see, my social media is on fire around Subject of Desire.
Yes.
I've learned, and I'm doing stuff, but there's someone who's helping or create. I'm actually doing my own stuff to support it and bringing in the narratives and all this kind of stuff. But someone's actually putting the visuals together. We hired an illustrator. So it's shocking, but you must understand, television, a movie, for example.
It's not cheap.
They're paying $60 million to promote a movie. We're talking about $100,000. But it's to hire primarily to do this stuff. Here's what we want to do, though. We want to do two things. We want to create lesson plans for all of the episodes, and we want to get them to school. We want to get them to corporations, because a lot of the people who make decisions in this country don't know. So it's not just to the schools, and so we want to set up a system whereby we can actually have some speakers besides ourselves, because we have to make other things. Go in with the films and present it and have conversations and facilitate those things. So that's one thing. We're also developing a series of graphic novels about the episode. So they'll be companion, and they can actually travel the world essentially, because and so we've gotten some funding, and we're in the process of doing that. And so that is a huge project, and we need support to do it, because again, otherwise then Sudz and I would only be working on BLK for the next bunch of years, but we have a lot of other things. So we need that support. So anybody who's out there who wants to come and invest in our impact plan, it's called an impact plan, call us. We need that funding, and our aim is to get this all over Canada, but also internationally, particularly in the US, because as you see, some of the early Blacks are in fact Black Americans. And then even Jamaica, there's been an interest in this story because of the Maroons. We want to get it there too. We want people to understand what our history is. Our history has been erased. And this history, I think, is triumphant. It's a legacy of strength and endurance and resilience. And we need the world to understand that. So that is kind of like, so we think that we can't just have it air and then move on. No, we gotta make sure that this is a part of what we understand about Canada.
So you know why I had you call it out? I had you call it out for a few reasons. Because we got to speak it into existence. We have to have the vision, right? We have to be, I'm going to give you my victory formula. You have to have the vision. You got to be intentional. So we're intentional about announcing this to the world, because we never know who knows who, because your ED became your associate producer who knew people in Nova Scotia. So we don't know who knows who, right? So we are going to cultivate this vision here today, because we need this to go out all over the world. And I'm so serious about this. I'm feeling this vision. and we're going to take the T and be tactical with it, and we're going to create some transformation. Oh my God. And then we're going to have some ovation along the way, because we're going to orchestrate this vision, because we're going to have the prayer warriors praying about this somewhere, because we're going to bring it to light. And then we're going to just take a little rest along the way. And in order for this to come forth, we are going to yield, humble ourselves to this process, because let me tell you, Black, an origin story. Oprah's got to see it. Ellen's got to see it. Tyler Perry's got to see it. Some other millionaire that we don't even know about. Because I just called some that we know. But what about the ones that we don't know?
Oh, no, yeah.
What about somebody who's out there who has a passion for education, who has a passion for hearing the truth, that the truth that will set us free will come forward and propel this into the education system, and do the books and help you do the novels and get the ghostwriters and get the illustrators and pay people what they're worth. Oh no, this is coming to forth. This is coming to forth. This is coming to life. I am excited. This is part of your legacy, Jen and Sudz. And so what if something happened tomorrow, God forbid, right? And every piece of information, every post, video, la-di-da-di-da, got removed. What would be the one thing, the one message that you would want to keep for the world to see and know?
Oh, geez. That's a good one. I think maybe it's about seeing people. I know for me, I felt unseen for such a long time. And I think it's about, we have to remove these dangerous narratives that stop us from seeing each other for who we really are, that create alternative realities and stories that are harmful and not true. I think that, because for me, I do think if people saw Black folks, the individual person in their life, or who they really are, as opposed to all this other nonsense that's been created, I think the world would be completely different, I mean, when you think about, like, for example, this alternative reality of fake news, what people are talking about are complete lies.
Yes.
And I think that if everything disappeared, if people were able to actually see people for their actions, for what they do, for who they are, I think we'd have a shot at reshaping the world.
And Seth, what about you? What would be that one message, or the one thing you wouldn't want them to delete that must be here in perpetuity of time?
I think that was beautiful what you said. I think, like, one of the things that have been occupying me throughout this process is our ancestors were stronger than any of us imagined, but we are the ancestors of our children and our children's children. So we also are stronger than we imagine. Because I think that, like, the stuff that they went through, that we're now going through, we're going through similar stuff, but it's like we learn so much about these people in trying to amplify their voices and distract. There's this one woman, Sylvia Starks, in British Columbia, 16 years old. She marries a man 30 years her senior. She's 16 years old. She marries this man, has an X number of kids, and lives to, be 100 and odd. But this, in a very hostile environment. But you're talking about a 16-year-old girl marrying a man who's almost 50. And that was kind of the regular way. That was what happened. And your expectation as a woman is you produce a number of children. And that's what is your job. And that's all you were, essentially. It wasn't like there was a this romantic pairing and all that kind of stuff. The
Mm-hmm.
romance came much later. That's a recent invention in terms of marriage. But
Mm.
but you imagine how strong that little girl is to live to 100 years of age on a, I mean, like, I can't even begin to understand that. I can't begin to understand how strong she was. So all I'm saying is that when we lay this down, that if that can remain and say, look how strong she was, look how strong she is, you know what I mean? Look how strong we are.
Mm-hmm.
That, I think, is what we have. That's our legacy with this project, is look how strong we are. Look how strong we were. Look how strong we are tomorrow. That's what I think that our legacy, that's what I think that this should remain.
Yeah.
You know,
And
you
I love, though, what you said about we are the ancestors to our children and their children, right? That's beautiful.
that was a drop the mic. That was a drop the mic moment. Like that was we are the ancestors to our children. That was a true drop the mic moment. Now you can't be on the Victory Speak show and don't answer this last question.
Okay.
What does victory look like to you?
Oh man. Victory looks like to me having greater choice for what I get to do and how I get to care for the people with me. I've said that one of the hardest things in being considered a success in an environment that was hostile was that we didn't have the resources to really have choice and not to care for the people. Not to pay people what they deserve, not to give positions, not to create the infrastructure that we would really have helped us. We still managed to make work, but I think victory means that I get to choose my team, work on the projects that we believe in, and take care of the people that are up with us in a way that they deserve
to be treated.
Yeah. And then also making freaking amazing work that globally people would be like, let's celebrate them. Let's celebrate them because the work they do is incredibly beautiful and impactful and powerful and all this. So yeah, that would be victory.
What's victory to you there, Sudz?
Well, all of that is.
I love the two of you.
Absolutely, all of that is victory. But I think that ultimately victory is that, and just being able to just achieve our potential. And that's I think that's limitless, because if you have the ability to dream it and then figure out the steps that are going to take to get you there and then to execute, that's victory. Because if you make a plan, again, as they say, as my parents said, fail to plan, plan to fail. It's you make your plan and you stick to it, and then you nose to the grindstone, and that, and then actually executing, and then winning. Man,
achieving your potential. I love it. I love it. Achieving your
potential. Yeah. You know what? We need a version. Anybody in the land out there who knows people who know people, we need a Black Love Canada. You know the show Black Love in the US. I love that show because you get to see Black Love. We need a Black Love Canada. And I definitely have one of my power couples here that's going to be on Black Love Canada because supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I am so wishing you guys all the best. Folks, you need to just go to Hungry Eyes Media, go search them up, go on their website, follow them, find Jen and find Sudz on Instagram and follow them and amplify and share this story. And when you watch the documentary, don't just watch it, share it, tell people about it. Make sure everybody is tuned in next on Friday, the 11th, and on Saturday. And make sure you are so tuned in that you do not miss the moment of this. Sudz and Jen, thank you for sharing your victory story. Thank you for sharing your love. Thank you for sharing your insight on your wisdom. I feel very victorious today. And if anybody wants to watch this again, you can go on the YouTube channel and you can subscribe to the YouTube Victory Speaks YouTube channel. And I'm going to leave you with these quotes, and I'm going to let Jen and Sudz take a rest from talking because I've had them talking all evening. Remember, and one of the things that came out of what you said is funny. It's a quote I had for tonight from Maya Angelou was, when you get, give, and when you learn, teach. And that's what you guys do. And I tell everybody, love is in the details. People like to say the devil is in the details. I say no, brethren.
Oh.
Love is in the details.
I love
that's my quote. So
Yes,
I'm gonna have to copyright that bad boy. And you have really inspired me, Sudz and Jen, to really even think about that dream I've had about filmmaking and documentaries, because I have so many in my head, especially I want to do one for mental health. Mm-hmm. And I remind everybody to seek to have an inspired conversation today. Look at this conversation. I hope you were inspired by it. I hope you got nuggets from it. And sometimes that conversation just, starts with a smile. And, let your victory speak. Remember your victory moments. As you go through this, go back and write down some of the stuff. There's so much that we can learn from each other. There's so much that we can glean from each other. And, one of the things I did, it's behind here. And I have my candles from Real Talk Candles, support a Black business, people, and I have my little victory box, and I write down victory moments during the week, or if I forget the week in the month, because sometimes when we feel down, we forget those things. So that's one of my mental health things. So Sudz and Jen, thank you for showing up and being here with me today. And for everybody live and on the replay, we thank you for tuning in. We're going to end the show with a little video, and we're going to bid you adieu and good night.
Good night. Thank you, Nicole.